Football is awesome. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Friday Night Roots. I'm your host, Justin Thomas. Before we jump into video, do me a huge favor. Like the video, share the video, subscribe if you can. Appreciate all the love you guys can give. Let's jump into the video. Today I'm going to be kind of covering a plethora of NFL news, all these big moves with GM hires, coaching hires. So today I wanted to take a little time before, towards the end of the week, we kind of transition into the games upcoming this weekend, which I will get to. I'll do a game preview as I always do. So today I'm just going to be covering all the NFL news, coaching hires, kind of give my opinions, give my takes. I've done a lot of research today. I've done a lot of thinking about these things, and, I always kind of ponder throughout the day about the video I'm going to record for you guys. So, as always, let's talk some football. So, ton of NFL news today, ton of hirings. The Raiders hired GM John Spytek. Then we've got Ben Johnson giving his first official press conference to the Bears organization. Jets hiring Aaron Glenn, and then Trent Balk out as the Jaguars GM, which I have a pretty heavy opinion on, of course. So, we're just gonna jump right into it and start with the Raiders hiring GM John Spytek. So, I kind of wanted to talk about this just because I thought it was a monumental move for the Raiders. I actually thought it was given the climate of the coaching jobs and the what's available and kind of how the recent modern NFL has adapted into this coaching realm. I know new starting coaches like Ben Johnson are getting over $10 million a year now, which is crazy to think about. But anyway, I wanted to kind of touch on the Raiders hiring the Bucs' old assistant GM, John Spytek, who does have prior ties to Tom Brady and kind of how he'll fit into the organization. So, anyway, as I mentioned, he's a former assistant GM for the Tampa Bay Bucs, and he's finalizing a deal with the Raiders. His connection with Tom Brady actually goes back to Michigan. I think for 1 or 2 years, I think it was one, but I'm not sure, fact check me, but 1 or 2 years he played on the same team at Michigan as Tom Brady. So I know they have some sort of mutual connection there. And not only that, he is it just makes the hire, I say, more logical than just a random outsider, which was kind of my fear for the Raiders. So anyway, Sports Illustrated Albert Breer today, he predicted that Spytek was a top candidate if, Lance Newmark, the old Commanders assistant GM, wasn't chosen. So, I wasn't surprised. Albert Breer, when I read his report about it, I was like, well, I could totally see Spytek ending up in the Raiders, and no surprise there. Look what happened. And not only that, Spytek, obviously, when Brady was at the Bucs, he worked closely with Brady, while Brady was during his Bucs tenure. He ran scouting meetings, kind of similar to New England. So these two know each other. They've been around each other. And I think if you take a look at the Bucs have done a really good job of taking an organization who is kind of so to kind of being a more relevant organization. Granted, they're not in a hard division, but I mean, the Bucs got weapons. They got Evans, they got Baker, they got Vita Vea, they got Chris Godwin. I mean, Bucky Irving. I mean, this team has essentially built itself into some really good weapons, despite not getting I'd say the most amount of media coverage of a team. But anyway, he'll start this new role. He'll come in with a lot of options, 6th overall pick in 2025 NFL draft, $92.5 million in cap space. The key needs, obviously, quarterback, and that's we'll go back to it every day till probably the whole entire offseason. They need a quarterback, but they do have the potential star in Brock Bowers, so that's exciting for them, a place to start, a place to, challenges. I think the biggest challenge ahead I see for him are, they're just a team that's facing a significant rebuild, right? Very significant rebuild. So, I know Max Crosby's deal has no more guaranteed money, and he said in a press conference, or he was on Good Morning Football, and he said, because he has no more guaranteed money on a contract, those conversations are said to be had. If I'm the Raiders, nuke the fucking team, trade him out of there, restart. They have some baseline weapons like Brock Bowers on a rookie deal. Just clock's ticking, right? It takes time, takes years to build these franchises. I'd say nuke it, restart. You got a ton of cap space. You got some good draft picks. Use them to your advantage and start fresh. And that's what, as a GM, that's probably what I would want. But I'm not a GM, so don't listen to me. Anyway, don't hate the hire. I actually really like the hire. I think it could be a bright spot for the Raiders. It'll be seriously interesting is to see who him and Brady and Davis kind of decide to bring in as their head coach right now. Weirdly enough, the front runners are Pete Carroll and Mike McCarthy. I don't know. I'm not. We could talk about that in a future video. Once they get hired, I'm sure I'll have an opinion. Then I'll just leave it at that. Ben Johnson gave his. I know I talked about him all day yesterday in that video, but Ben Johnson gave his first press conference today. He kind of just I watched the whole thing. He touched on a lot of things. I wrote down some notes. He talked about the excitement, to coach Caleb Williams, and he did imply, of course, it had an impact on his decision. Of course, it did. Why wouldn't it? I think that's one of the main reasons he wanted the Bears job to begin with. And he also emphasized how important it is, to having a quarterback for success. Duh. He did mention something that I took a note of that I thought was interesting. She said Chicago's offense won't be a copycat of Detroit's, which actually kind of, I feel like, settled a lot of people in Chicago, settled a lot of NFL fans down like me, because I was like, man, you can't just copy that, right? I mean, the weapons that the Lions have compared to the Bears are just, I'm not saying that the Bears have none. The Bears actually have a really good foundation. They just need to put the pieces together, but I mean, they're just different pieces, right? You're not going to be building the same structure. So I loved how he said that. He aims to attack defenses in unexpected ways and use Caleb to his advantages, use the personnel to his advantages, which is, of course, important. And one reporter did ask him, hey, how many years do you think it's going to take to actually build this and get somewhere? He said it's not impossible for the playoffs in 2025. Do I think it's possible? No, I don't. I think just with as young as that team is and the new pieces they have to get on the O-line to make the team better, I just can't see that. I just can't see them being like 10 wins. I want to see that. I thought maybe this year, but it turns out Eberflus fucking sucked. But I want to see it. But, I digress. As time goes on, my opinion might change. But as of right now, I don't see it as an option. But he didn't say it was a guarantee. He just said it could happen. And I think that gives the Bears fans a little bit of hope, a little bit of excitement. One of the things that a theme that came out of the Chicago area and the Bears, after the season was accountability. Caleb said Williams did an interview right after Ben Johnson, and Caleb's interview was kind of, he kept saying accountability, and I assume in all the words and local beat reporters I've been reading from Chicago today, it seems as if with Eberflus there was no accountability, meaning when players were screwing up, when people were screwing up in film, they weren't getting called out. Like the coaches weren't saying, hey, look, you see in film, you step with your right foot, not your left. Now your quarterback's getting punched, right? I think Caleb's implying that didn't happen in the film sessions, that the coaches weren't, striking down players, not that in a bad way, but like, hey, you fucked up, fix it. He said I think he's implying there wasn't enough transparency, but he said accountability is key. And Ben Johnson said he's excited to implement that for Caleb. Like, hey, we're going to hold everybody accountable. We're going to put you on blast in front of the whole team on film if you look like an idiot. I mean, that's the best way to get better. And it's not that you're trying to embarrass these players. I was a football player. I mean, we had some of the best wins of our life. And Monday comes around in high school, you're in the film room and your coach is ripping you in your ass. You're like, Coach, we won. Why are you, because you did something fundamentally incorrect, right? So I thought that was a bright spot for them. And yeah, press conference seemed good. It'll be interesting to see. He's pretty early on, just quite frankly, just a few days after their loss. He's already in the building, getting his feet wet and looking at offensive defensive coordinator. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I know he eventually, players like Jalen Johnson, Cole Kmet, and Montez Sweat, might take on larger leadership roles, and I think that's something that Ben Johnson has already identified, Caleb's already identified. Like, they need to have a better veteran presence on that football team. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see. Happy for them. I've done enough talking about Ben Johnson the last 2 days. Jets hire Aaron Glenn. I mean, initial knee-jerk reaction, I love the hire, and as much as I talk shit about the Jets and their ownership and why no one or why I wouldn't ever want to be a coach there, I get it. Like, But I just think Aaron Glenn's one of those guys who can handle it. I think Robert Saleh, being a Niners fan, I was rooting for the Jets. I was rooting for Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh's kind of he's just such a nice guy. He's got that friendly personality. I think Aaron Glenn still has that chip on his shoulder being a former player. I think he kind of has that. I think he can handle the New York market and media. I really do. I think for the Jets, it's a win. It's an absolute win. And I think the Jets don't deserve a guy as good as Aaron Glenn, but I digress. Woody Johnson, congratulations. You got a winner. And if I'm a Jets fan, I'm pretty happy today. Obviously, he's a former NFL player. He had a 15-year career spending I think 6, 7, 8 seasons with New York, and then he went to Houston, then he went to Dallas, and he went to 2 other teams after that, but was really on the latter half of his career. He wasn't too impactful, but he spent most of his NFL career in New York, Houston, and Dallas, and he was making plays. He ended his career with 600-plus tackles. I mean, the guy knows football, and then let's not forget his resume. He was a NFL scout for the Jets in June of 2012. As a personnel scout. So he's got that experience. Then he jumped over to the Cleveland Browns 2 years later. In 2014, he was named the assistant defensive backs coach for the Cleveland Browns. So, just baby steps, right? Then he jumped over to the Saints in 2016. He was hired as their secondary coach. And then, ultimately once Campbell took over, as the Lions in 2021, he's hired by the Lions as their defensive coordinator under Dan Campbell. The guy's got a rap sheet. He's got all the pieces he needs. I don't like the Jets just because of ownership and Woody Johnson. So, but maybe Aaron Glenn's the guy who can handle Woody, who can handle, the media, who can handle the market, and ultimately be a leader of men. I know he's one of compared to, Ben Johnson's kind of got that quirkier, more introverted personality. I think Aaron Glenn's, I think he's introverted, but I think he holds a much closer personality to Dan Campbell. On the sideline, he's very forceful. He's like a player. He's youthful. He's got energy. And I think he can really win a locker room, whereas I think maybe Robert Saleh didn't have the locker room as much as we thought. I really don't. He's just too nice of a guy, and that's crazy to say, but Robert Saleh is just a good guy, and I just don't think he had enough authority to do it. So anyway, the Jets, congratulations, you got lucky, and the fact that you got a coaching candidate this good, this willing to come see it. And I love what Aaron Glenn said in his press conference the other day. Right before the game last week, he said, they said, "Oh, you're a defensive coach," and he stopped the media member. He said, "No, I'm a football coach." I love that. He said, "I've talked in offensive meetings, defensive meetings." He said, "I'm a football coach." So love that. Congratulations, Jets. We'll see what you do with it. Don't fuck it up, will you? On to the next. Patriots rehire offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels. I call him, and me and my roommate call him McDibshit. I don't love it. I know as a coordinator, this guy's got an ample resume. I know he's got this big winning thing going on when it comes to being a coordinator, but probably one of the worst head coaches in the history of football. His 2 stints as a head coach, I don't even think it made it past a year and a half in either of them. So, but who knows? The NFL's crazy. I'm a huge Vrabel fan. I have a lot of trust in Vrabel. So if Vrabel trusts this guy, I don't think it was the worst decision. I'd like to see the Patriots as much as I like Vrabel and I'd like to see, in McDaniels, I'd like to see the Patriots get away from once a Patriot, always a Patriot, always bringing in Patriot alumni and play. I think if the Patriots if this stint with Vrabel and McDaniels doesn't work out, maybe it's time to start fresh, whole new slate. But I digress. Let's talk about McDaniels a little bit. Obviously, he's got a huge personal history with the Patriots. He was a personnel assistant in 2001, then a defensive assistant from 2 to 3, then a quarterbacks coach from 4 to 5, and then he ended up becoming the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach from 2006 to 2008. So, huge Patriots history. He was the offensive coordinator from 2012 to 2021. He won 6 Super Bowls with Belichick and Brady. So this guy is not, by no means unexperienced, and he's worked under defensive head coaches before, i.e. Mike Vrabel. So, obviously working under Belichick, don't even need to say it, but yeah. So, I don't know. I don't have too many personal opinions on it other than, I hope it works out. He still resides in Foxborough, maintains, of course, a great relationship with Belichick and Vrabel. His head coaching record is where this shit starts to get interesting for me. He's the head coach of the Broncos 2009 to 2010 and Raiders 22 to 23. He's got a 20-33 record, no playoff appearances. I just think he struggled completely to replicate the success he had in New England, especially with, he had superstar QBs at times. He had them. He had Kyle Orton, he had Tim Tebow, he had Sam Bradford, all guys who at that time were like highly regarded. Like, these are good guys, not Brady, but good, but just terrible as a head coach. But it kind of goes back to the offensive success in New England. Can you bring that back? Top 10 in yards 8 times, top 10 in points 12 times. Never had a top 10 offense in other coaching roles, but as an OC with the Patriots, he was good. Given Drake Maye and he's there, opportunity to change something again, right? And obviously, I'm sure, given his situation now, he'll have a lot more freedom with offensive play calling under Vrabel's defensive focus. So who knows? Maybe it'll be good for them. It's kind of one of those things that I feel it's kind of like up in the wind. I can deal with it. I cannot. Don't really give a shit. It'll be interesting to see how the Patriots do. Rooting for Vrabel though. Rooting for Vrabes. Love the guy. Let's just move on. This is the one that was like, today I was really thinking about, like, what a fucking stupid decision. Trent Baalke is out as the Jaguars GM. What a fucking clown show Shad Khan's got cooking up over there. No offense, Shad. If I ever get to work for you, love you. If I don't, oh well. Baalke's firing timing. Can we talk about that? Does anybody keep track of that? It occurred after the top coaching candidates declined Jacksonville's offer. After. Ben Johnson's obviously going to the Lions. Aaron Glenn's obviously, Ben Johnson's obviously going to the Bears. Aaron Glenn's obviously going to the Jets. Liam Cohen, the Buccaneers offensive coordinator, he's going to stay with Tampa Bay. So who does that leave? Pete Carroll? Mike McCarthy? I mean, whoever you want, but all the top guys are gone. So I just think the reason for the candidates' reluctancy, probably Baalke's future with the 49ers and what happened with Harbaugh. I think that plays a big role. I think he kind of forced Jim Harbaugh out despite the team's success. He had multiple NFC Championship appearances and a Super Bowl appearance, and they basically forced him out. And then he hired Jim Tomsula and Chip Kelly, both one-and-done head coaches for the Niners organization. It's hard for me not to talk from a place of bias just because I hate this guy, but I'm really more trying to keep the focus on the Jaguars and their timing with it. Baalke's tenure with Jacksonville, he joined them in 2020 as the director of player personnel. He became the GM in 2021. He drafted Trevor Lawrence, Travon Walker. He drafted Trevor Lawrence first overall in 2021, but in the 2022 draft, he chose Travon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson and failed to build a consistent winner in the AFC South, eventually leading to his departure recently. What makes this whole situation with the Jags so frustrating for me is why in the hell, if all these head coaches are saying, hey, listen, man, it's just not, Jags just aren't it for me. As an owner, you have to ask why. Well, why? And if they were giving those answers, well, I just don't want to work for Baalke. I don't want to go work under Trent Baalke. That guy's, known for firing. He fired Harbaugh, was a good coach at the time, So it's like, I think, like, just the timing of it was shitty. Like, after all the good coaches are gone, you're like, oh, right, well, maybe we should fire this guy and bring in a coach who can bring his own GM. Well, it's like a little too fucking late for that. NFL moves like this. Once the regular season ends, for the teams that don't make the postseason, even the teams that do, the coaches that do, I mean, the wheels are spinning. I mean, it's already 2025 next. I mean, we're talking about a multi-bazillion-dollar fucking industry here, so they're going to be moving. Now, what's next? Next coach, next GM, and even, like I said, I think they should still change the rule to interview after the season ends. I don't think if you're on a current team that's still playing the playoffs, I don't think you should be allowed to interview. I think the NFL should say no interviews until after February 4th or February 12th or whenever the Super Bowl is. No interviews at all for any team until after that moment in time. Then you can interview anybody, you can hire anybody you want. But I think it's stupid that that's not instated. I think it'd be very distracting. Like, come on, Ben Johnson took that job 3 days after they lost. You don't think he had that $13 or $14 million a year on his mind for the next fucking 6 years in Chicago? You don't think he had that on his mind at all? Oh no, we lost the divisional playoff game. Fuck. Oh no, I'll cry on my $16 million the next 6 years. My $70 million or whatever the total, $60 million, whatever the total. Oh no, I'll cry on my $60 million after I leave here. I don't think I think it really does affect coaching. I think it could affect coaching mentality and ultimately, the effort that a coach gives if he's already 1 foot out the door before the season even ends. So just something to think about, consider. Other than that, that kind of covers it for today. I didn't have too much to say other than just kind of covering the news, and my little tidbits and thoughts about it. I think there's one other thing that happened in the news today. Vikings are now working on an extension for GM Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, which doesn't surprise me. Obviously, I know that they just did O'Connell, and I know they're super happy with the way they've built that team over there in Minnesota. So not surprised there. I just didn't have too much information to talk about it. He's done a good job. Let the football speak for itself. We'll see how it goes, right? So, appreciate you guys tuning in. Do me a huge favor before you go. Like the video, share the video if you can, subscribe if you can. Appreciate all the love, guys. And as always, let's talk some ball. Love you.